Free Guy. Should you go out to the theaters and watch this, or should you wait for it to come on VOD, video on demand, or it might come on Disney Plus? But the real question is, theaters or no theaters? Now, I'm gonna start with this. This movie, instead of starting with the plot, I'm gonna start with what most people are gonna ask: should I watch this in the theaters, or should I wait till it comes on VOD? Personally, it's really going to be up to your taste. Now, this movie is not divisive. It's actually pretty decent. It's a popcorn movie. If you're at home and you don't have a good sound system or a great one, and you're okay with it, if you're vaccinated and you're okay with it, I would, depending on the timing and stuff like that, maybe give it a chance to watch it in theaters. Other than that, I would wait to stream it. This is one of those movies I would wait to stream it. I couldn't tell you to go out and watch a movie unless you haven't watched a movie in a long time. I saw it in theaters, but now I would say at best wait till it streams. Definitely watch it at home. But if the right this is really up to you. Great circumstances where you don't have your great TV or anything like that, definitely watch it in a theater. Okay. So, let's get into the plot. There isn't that much of a plot. It's mainly about a bank teller who finds out he's an NPC in an open world game. Ryan Reynolds plays Guy, and he is a man who does not know that he's in a video game. He just thinks he's just living his life daily as he goes along with his friend Buddy, and one day he finds out there's a girl in his life, or he wants to find a girl that would make him complete and whole. And that's where the adventure goes. Now, I don't want to get into spoilers or any details like that, but let me just let you go that way. Because there's been a lot of commercials, and I feel like the commercials have ruined a little bit of the surprise from this movie. So I'm going to keep it pretty much light right there. The only other thing I could say is, since it's in a video game world, there's an outside event in the movie where it's going to be dealing with the video game world and the outer world. So that's the main details. Now I'm just going to break down the characters. Now we're going to start with I'm going to say the best to the worst. Not worst as in they're terrible, but let's go with Millie. I feel like she was a standout. Now, this movie was sold on Ryan Reynolds, but Millie, and she is a character in there. She does a fantastic job. She does an amazing job at really selling this movie. The actress who plays Millie, not really great with names, but the point is she is really standout. Then next is Ryan Reynolds. He brings his charisma. His name is Guy. And that's about it. There's not really much to his development. He doesn't really change that much. He just comes from I'm a bank teller to, it's not a big development, so no spoilers for that. And then there's Keys. Now, you've seen him on Stranger Things. He's good. He's good. For being on Stranger Things, he's not really the most impressive role. It's not going to really push him into the mainstream movie world. He's gonna still in that video game TV world. And there's Lil Rel horribly cast in this movie. I'm gonna say Lil Rel is just not used well at all in this movie. He's just pretty much there. He doesn't really have much of a role. He just pretty much move along the plot for short distance. Not much. He doesn't really. He's a comedian. He's been great. You've seen him in Get Out. And that one's the biggest disappointment for me there. And one that's not as disappointing, because I did say best to worst, but it's disappointing because some people are going to take it, they're going to hate it, or they're going to love it. And it's Taika Waititi. He plays Antonio, and his delivery is sometimes funny as hell, and sometimes it's just not funny at all. But sometimes it's actually really good. But it's usually good in the way he's serious. It's weird. It's like his humor is not great, but his seriousness is good. And it's going to be up to you. I've seen some reviewers who don't like him, and me personally, I like them at some parts. But that's about it for the characters. The characters aren't really well developed other than Millie. And other than that, this is not a character-based movie. So if you're here for characters or just a great story about triumph of anything, this ain't the movie for you. Okay, so let me break down the effects. The effects are actually weirdly good. Some are good, and some are just weirdly bad. For some reason. For some reason, in the video game, it's supposed to look realistic. So they shoot it in a way where it's supposed to be just realistic, not like that Ready Player One where it was actually digitally shot for the video game world. This is like, okay, we're just gonna make it seem like the regular world, the world that we're in is a video game. But for some reason, when you see in the real world, you see the game's graphics, they're almost like PlayStation 2 graphics, which is weird because it's like, okay, so you want this hyper realistic effect, not the hyper effect, you want just to shoot it to make it look real, but in the real world the graphics look terrible, which doesn't make sense. But other than that, I think the visual department actually did a pretty decent job. This is not going to be one of those movies that's going to be nominated for like great visual effects. It's not going to be one of those game changer effects like Jurassic Park back in the day. It's just one of those movies that's like, oh yeah, Hollywood can do visual effects. They can do it. And that's about it. Other than that, there's also, yeah, that's about visual effects. I'm gonna add this as an extra, but since I'm a huge video gamer, I like video games. I play Xbox. I have the Xbox X. I have the PlayStation 4. I want a PlayStation 5. I have the Switch. I love games. Now, with this, for a gamer perspective, they do a lot with that. They actually have a lot of Easter eggs and a lot of hints. So, showing that these people actually did play video games. They're not like one of those executives who's like, these video games, whatever that is. I'm just going to throw in whatever is popular. They actually have some Easter eggs in there. And it's not just, because this game is mainly focused on GTA Online and Fortnite. But there's a lot of references in there. Now I'm going to give you a couple. There's Halo, and then there's some online activity they throw in there that if you've played online games, you notice quickly. But other than that, that's the one I'm going to point out is Halo. They also have the portal gun. I think that's in the trailer. And there's a lot of other things. I want to let you have that experience. I don't want to give you that much. So it's good. I think from a video game aspect, pretty much aspect, I think the best thing to do with video games, definitely you're gonna ask like, well, why not do a popular franchise? The biggest problem with popular franchises is the fact that they have a lore, they have a story, and it doesn't translate well to a 2-hour film. Some of these stories are 10 hours. And there's a lot of things that you need to develop over time. This one, it does the video game stance pretty decently. It's like, okay, we need to have a basic plot with a basic character, and that's how we're going to get it done. And so, they do a pretty good job. Not great, but pretty good. Let me give you my overall score. Now, I said it was pretty good. It is a popcorn film. That's the best I can give it. Out of a scale of 1 out of 10, I have to give it a 6. I'm giving it a 6 mainly because it barely stands above movies like this. Now, this last weekend, since I'm recording this later, it's been doing successfully. I think it's going to be a crowd pleaser in that aspect, but for the most part, it's not going to be one of those memorable movies that unless you watched it, you'll love it, and then you might see it later on in life. But it's not one of those movies that's just going to be like one of those, not like game changer. I don't think everything has to be an Oscar movie, but it's just one of those movies like most people talk about like Die Hard or like The Godfather. I mean, again, it's an Oscar movie. But I'm just talking about like the action movies of the back in the day, from the 90s to the 80s to the 70s, that are so iconic because of their set pieces and the concepts that they really executed character work. This movie's not that movie. It is just a fun fluff of a film. It's going to have you just enjoying your time, but it's going to be forgotten in a couple of years. And just when you that was interesting, or one of those brought up like, hey, did you watch that movie, Free Guy? Yeah, that was pretty fun. That's about it. It's not going to be one of those movies that you're going to be going back like, oh my god, remember that one scene, like The Matrix, out of The Matrix. Another example of reality bending worlds. That movie was iconic and it was copied numerous amounts of times. One of those blow your mind moments. This movie is not one of those things. It's one of those, hey, it's fun, I watched it, and that's about it. So yeah, 6 out of 10. It was above average. It did a lot better than the trailers portrayed it. But other than that, I wouldn't. You're not gonna remember it in like forever. You're gonna enjoy it for a moment. Yeah.